For the last 18 years of my life, my singular focus had been on improving as a footballer and to reach the highest level that I possibly can. This pursuit have taken me across several different places and clubs, where I met different players and different people that have all had some sort of effect on my development. I played for my local club, I played in 2 different academies, I played non-professional senior football, as well as 2 years at a professional level. Because 15 years into this journey, in 2022, I finally signed my first professional contract at 22 years of age, after several years where I considered to just give up. I set off on this journey as a 7-year-old back in 2007. And today I'm sitting here at 24 where I'm about to share everything that I've learned over the past 18 years. 18 years where I've collected invaluable knowledge, experience, and even some secrets about the game of football. In this massive video, I'll walk you through my entire career step by step, from me starting out as a 7-year-old kid all the way to where I am today. Throughout the video, I'll share 3 important lessons that I've learned during each phase of my career, resulting in a total of 18 lessons. But I will also share mistakes I made that have slowed me down in this journey. But even before we get started, I can say straight away that the most important thing in my career that have gotten me to where I am today is patience. And if you can show the same patience by watching this entire video, you will have gained 18 years of football knowledge in just 30 minutes. Let's go all the way back to 2007 and let's begin. Chapter 1. Getting started. So my football journey started back in 2007, back when I was only a 7-year-old kid. I started playing for my local club, Hällefors AIF. And back then, and for the first few years, I didn't consider football anything other than something fun to do with my friends. And that brings us onto the first lesson that I've learned, and that is to never force it. And what do I mean by that? Well, I think because both of social media and the society of comparison that we live in today, we may force ourselves to becoming serious with football too quickly and too early on in our careers, before we have established a true love and passion for the game. It can be that we're drawn into the game for the wrong reasons, like money, fame, or the external validation that we see the top players receive. It can also be our parents forcing and pushing us early into the game when it's not really our own inner desire to do so. And why is this important? Because when you don't have that true and internal passion for the game itself, you don't have a very stable foundation to stand on. And when you don't have that stable foundation to stand on, it will be very difficult to succeed in the long term. So what I think benefited me a lot was partly that for the first few years of my career, I was allowed to find that true and internal passion for the game, which in turn created that stable foundation that I could then keep building on. I do want to emphasize that I don't think there's anything wrong with having external things as sources of motivation. I have had that plenty of times in my career and it has helped taking me forward, but I think that there first has to be an internal love for the game. In time, that will create desires to improve, to get better, and to see how far you can go. And that leads us to the second lesson. 3 years into my journey, I started to feel more and more that football was something more for me. Something more than just a fun thing. Something that I wanted to chase and something that I wanted to dedicate my life to. I had now built up an inner desire to chase a dream of a career in football. And when I was 10 years old, I then started to take my development even more seriously. I started to perform my own individual training outside of team training by doing exercises I found online. But the important thing here was not what I did, just that I actually did it. I probably didn't do the most optimal training for me at the time, but I did something. And when you're starting out, this is one of the absolute best things you can do. Not obsess over what kind of training you need to do, but to get out and do something. And this was a mistake that I actually started to make later in my career, but we'll get to that later in the video. But as I started to build the basic foundations of me as a footballer, I also started to build the daily habits that would help my development. And building positive habits early on in your career will have a huge effect on where you end up long term. Because I built up the habit of individual training, that part of my life always felt so natural and not like something that I have to do. It's just a part of my life. And I managed to build that habit because of being consistent with my training. And I managed to be consistent with my training because I didn't over-obsess over what training I had to do. After school was done, I would stay alone for hours and hours on end in an old abandoned gym when it was cold and dark outside and all I had was a ball and some cones. Very few people would have done that, but because of the combination of my internal passion, external motivations, and habits I had built up, it didn't feel like work. It felt like a natural part of life. But as you've gotten started in building these foundations and these habits that will set you up for long-term success, you will eventually need to start looking forward and to where you want to go. The third lesson I learned in the early stages of my career was the importance of setting goals. But there should also be an important distinction in how you set your goals. You can set controllable goals and you can set uncontrollable goals. And there is a time and place for both. Controllable goals can be that you want to train 3 times a week individually, or something even more specific, like that you want to go to bed at a certain time every evening to make sure that you get the proper amount of sleep. Your controllable goals is something that you can affect. Uncontrollable goals is something like, I want to score 15 goals this season, or even something as big as, I want to play for Real Madrid. These goals are not something you can control directly because there are many different factors at play, but I think that they're equally as important as the controllable goals. Because the uncontrollable goals are your most inner dreams and desires that provide you with the direction of where you want to go. They act as your compass. When I was at this age, I set very big goals with my football, and those are goals that maybe I haven't reached as of yet, but those goals acted as my compass and they set me on a path in my life and career that have taken me to where I am today. And the only way to start moving in the direction that your compass shows is to take action by achieving your controllable goals. And it doesn't really matter what stage you're at in your career, the concept of balancing your dreams with action is a concept that applies to every player. One long-term goal I set in the earliest stages of my career was to join an academy, and that brings us onto the next chapter of this video. Chapter 2, the Academy Experience. At 13 years of age, I left my local club after 7 years to join my very first academy. In my head, this was the next step in my development, to be able to get a better football education, to train in a better environment, and to face stronger players. However, that brings us to the fourth lesson of my career, which may be slightly controversial. And that is that I believe that an academy is definitely not a necessity for you to reach your football dreams. After playing 3 years in my first academy and then 3 years in another for a total of 6 years, I understand why you may think that an academy is necessary. But to be honest, if you can't get into one, I wouldn't be overly worried. I do believe that the right academies can provide you with a more formal and streamlined education with a logical sequence of steps to improve you as a footballer. But to be honest, I believe that in the technical, the physical, and the mental side of the game, I could have developed equally as great without playing in any of the academies that I played in. And a lot of the progress I made in these areas came down to my own individual work. What I think I would be missing out on the most would be the improvement that I made in my tactical knowledge and understanding of the game, and also perhaps having academy on my CV. I'm not saying that if you have the opportunity to not play in an academy. If you feel like you have found a good academy, definitely go for it. Here I'm talking more to the players who may not have access to an academy and think that it's the end of the world. If I did not play in an academy, I would probably have tried to research and learn as much about the tactical side of the game as I could from the resources that I had available. That could be online resources like YouTube videos or books and articles about different formations, different tactics, different patterns of play, even down to the specifics of different positions, and then try to implement those concepts from theory more practically into my game. Besides that, I would also aim to get myself to play at as a high level as possible, to challenge my current knowledge and to face the best players possible. It could be trying to join a better team, a higher age group, or take an earlier step up into senior football depending on what stage you're at in your career. While playing in my first academy, I also learned another key lesson, and that was that you won't be friends with everyone when you go through your football career. When you go through your career, you will encounter players, coaches, and other people who you enjoy being with and can develop strong bonds to. But also, and I've been open about this before in previous videos, there will also be people that you won't like or agree with. There will be people of different opinions of how to do things and people who you just don't vibe with. That's a part of football, but also in all other walks of life. Because this is a definitive truth that we can control, instead of wasting energy on trying to change or avoid these situations, the best thing you can do is focus on how you can respond to them. How can we instead learn how to deal with these sort of people, and how can we learn from them? Because what I first want you to take away is that even though you may not like or agree with certain people, you can always learn something from them. I've had coaches and played with players that I didn't particularly like, but in the end I've always managed to take away something, sometimes even very small things, but at least something from each and every one. It could be a small tactical detail in the philosophy that a coach had, to an intricate technical detail of how a teammate used to receive the ball under pressure. Secondly, I want you to understand that even though you may not like certain people, always try to remain professional in your relationship with them, because in the end you're part of the same team and you strive for the same goal, to win football games. Dealing with people you don't like or agree with forces you to somehow learn the skill of placing your focus on the right things. But focus is so much more, and focus is something you need to master if you want to achieve your goals, and that's what we'll talk about in the next lesson. Starting to play in an academy, that was really the next step in my development. And in a way, it forced me to grow up faster in certain aspects of my life and to take my football more seriously. I've always been someone who have wanted to do a lot of things, but when I entered this new phase of my life, it made me realize to some degree that to make progress in certain aspects of our life, like our football career, we have to say no to other things and learn how to focus and to prioritize. This can be very hard, especially in the beginning, as we're chasing something that we have no guarantee that we will succeed with. It can also be hard because we have to learn how to say no to different areas of our lives that maybe we enjoyed doing previously as well. It can be seeing your friends less and less, saying no to that activity that everyone else will attend because you have to go to training or you have to recover your body. Even today, this is something that I can struggle with, and to be honest, I think that will continue for the rest of my life, and it's just something that I will have to learn how to live with. We only have a limited amount of time each and every day, and if we can accept that and fill that time with the things we want to do the most, that aligns with our long-term goals and dreams, I think we somehow have to be happy with that. Chapter 3. Obsessing and Changing Environments. When I was 16 years old in 2016, I entered a new chapter of my life and career when I for the first time left my family to move to an entirely new city, a new club, and a new environment. But why did I do that, and how did I know that it was the right time for me to leave my previous club and academy to continue my journey elsewhere? There could be several reasons for why you may need a change of environment, and discussing all different kind of scenarios and specifics of those scenarios would take forever. So instead, I think the two most important questions that you can ask yourself is, am I growing and am I happy? If the answer is yes to both of those questions, then there are no problems and you're probably already in a good place. If the answer is no to both of those questions, I think you should probably try to look for a new and a better environment. If the answer is yes to one of the questions and no to the other, then I think we need to look at the whys. Why am I not growing, or why am I not happy? If the answer to that question lies within your control, or in other words, is it something that you can do something about without changing environments, then try that first. If the answer lies outside of your control, then a switch of environment is probably the best thing to go for. Obviously, you should always take your time to make a decision like this, and this is only one type of mindset framework that can help you make that decision. But I think making that decision-making process simple by asking yourself these two very simple questions can help you make it a lot easier to make that decision. In the end, the lesson I've learned here is that there really aren't any guarantees of anything in our lives and careers, and I think we have to become comfortable with that fact and then try our best to navigate in a world that is inevitably filled with uncertainty. One thing I've learned from one of the best coaches that I've ever had that really translates into everything we do is the lesson of accountability and holding yourself accountable instead of pointing fingers at everyone else. For example, there were many periods in my career when maybe I didn't get the playing time that I wanted to. But instead of complaining and blaming the coach and everyone else for me not playing, I chose to look to myself first. Analyze the reasons why my playing time wasn't what I wanted, and then put in the work on the things that I believed would get me closer to playing more. But this also leads to a big mistake that I made at this point of my career. And that mistake was that I was very self-driven. And because of that, I didn't feel a need to communicate with the people around me. Because instead of me only getting my own one-sided perspective of the situation, I could instead have involved the people around me, like my coach or a teammate, and communicated better with them to together get me closer to a place in the starting lineup. Usually, a coach doesn't make these decisions because they don't like you. It's usually because at this moment in time, you're just not good enough. And you know what? There's no problems with that. If we instead let go of our ego and accept that, and then try our best to involve them in the process, we'll be able to become good enough much faster. In this relentless pursuit of always trying to improve, get better, and chase the next big thing, we can also fall into a trap that will ruin our entire careers, and that's the lesson that we'll cover next. In my late teens, I started to feel a huge amount of stress because I wasn't where I wanted to be at that point of my career. I was mostly sitting on the bench in my team, and the highest level I had played at was a few cameos in the 5th tier of Swedish football. This always made me put a huge pressure on myself to work harder and harder, and almost force myself to play better and better. And obviously this didn't work. It only made things worse, because I was trying too hard. And I think this is very common among aspiring players. You start out by working hard and you start to see some form of success, but then you reach a point where you think working harder and harder and doing more will solve all of your problems. But many times I believe that that is looking at the problem from the wrong angle. The problem for me was not that I didn't put in the work, but believing that hard work was the only solution. The problem in reality was that I cared and obsessed so much over my future that I forgot to live in the present. This also made me lose the very thing that I started to play football for, the enjoyment and the passion. It wasn't until a few years ago that I started to realize this, and once I did, that huge pressure was lifted on my shoulders and I finally started to reap the rewards of all the hard work that I had put in over the years. So if you feel like you're constantly chasing the next big thing in your career, which you want to do, but you never manage to seem to get there, try to hit the brakes, stop, look around, and ask yourself the question, what is the actual problem? Hard work is not always the answer. Chapter 4. Taking a step backward to move forward. Once I turned 20 years old, I was too old to stay in the academy, and I never managed to reach the level that was required for the first team, so in 2020 I faced a big decision. I could call it a day and say that maybe reaching the professional level in football wasn't for me, but somewhere deep down I still felt like I hadn't reached my highest level. And I believe that it was still possible and I wanted to keep exploring that. But how would I get there? The only realistic place I could go from where I was in many ways a step backwards. Going from playing in a high-level academy to joining a lower division team, albeit at the senior level, but still at a lower level. This can be tough for your ego, but from what I've learned from this phase of my career, it may be that these backward steps are the exact steps that you need to take to be able to move forward again. I realized that taking a step back, getting your confidence levels up while you keep honing your skills can be the solution to so many of your problems. Understanding and being okay with that can be so helpful for so many players out there who feel like they want to give up on their dreams. In time, this allowed me to get more and more experience, and together with the changed mindset that we spoke about in lesson 9, it allowed me to reach new heights in my footballing level. But I still had some way to go, and at this point of my career, I crossed a vital point where I had to learn the difference between youth football and senior football. For my entire career from the age of 7 all the way up to the age of 19, I had played what was considered youth football, apart from a short period in 2018. In 2020, however, I got my first real taste of senior football, and I quickly had to adapt to understand the difference between the two. In youth football, the focus is mostly on development, to improve as a team, to learn new concepts, and to improve your skills. When you get to the senior level, the focus switches from development to winning. The focus is no longer on learning, but on getting results. At the senior level, you're already expected to have the necessary knowledge and the skill level to be able to help the team win games. If you can't do that, you won't play. It may be a tough pill to swallow, but that is just the reality. But that doesn't mean that you can't keep on improving. The key here is to learn how to balance your own development with the team's goals. In the end, you can make the two work hand in hand with the right planning and the right mindset. But just know that there will most likely not be the same patience and the same treatment that you experience at the youth level at the senior level. To be honest, during this phase of my career, there wasn't a day where I didn't question whether I should keep going or whether I should just give up. But somehow I always kept going. I kept going to the pitch to hone my skills. I kept going to the gym to develop my strength. I kept learning and I kept gaining experience. And in 2021, that work finally started to show results when I enjoyed the best season of my career up to that point. Then at the start of 2022, I went on my first trial with a professional team. And just days before I turned 22 years old, I finally managed to sign my first professional contract. This is maybe the most important lesson of the entire video, and it's the same old story that everyone keeps repeating, but that is because it's true. And that lesson is, don't give up. 22 years old can be considered late to sign your first professional contract, especially looking at players like Lamine Yamal, Jude Bellingham, and many others who have signed their first professional contracts at very young ages. But that only goes to show two things. Comparison kills your dreams. Understanding that your journey is unique is what saves them. Understanding that if you keep doing the right things on a consistent basis, you will still have a chance. Understanding that you write your own chapters in your journey. Understanding that patience, in the end, will be rewarded. Chapter 5: Pro Experience. So at the start of 2022, I headed into what will be my first ever professional season. This was, of course, an exciting new step in my career where I felt like I had made a step up. But after only a few months, I realized that in reality, it was not that different. Don't get me wrong, the level of play was definitely higher. The game was played faster, players were smarter and quicker, and mistakes were punished more frequently. But the day-to-day life that I had been used to, with going to the gym and doing my own individual training, followed by team trainings during the week and games on the weekends, that didn't change. This may seem obvious, but this made me learn another lesson. I believe to make it to the professional level, you have to live like a pro before you become one. I believe because I had done that for so many years, it didn't come as a surprise to me, and it allowed me to faster adapt to the new environment that I was in. So don't expect that things will change once you sign your first professional contract. Because to reach that level in the first place, you should already be used of what the life is like being a professional. At the professional level, what I said in lesson 11 about the difference between youth and senior football, that takes a step up. Because at the professional level, football is a business. And the goal of a business is to make money. And the easiest way to do that in football is to win. More money means being able to get better players, which in turn means winning more football matches. And the wheel goes around. Therefore, at the professional level, the pressure will be higher, where everyone will demand more of you, including coaches, teammates, and fans, and your mental strength will be tested more often. But because of this, the reward, joy, and satisfaction you feel when you win will be much higher. What I personally have felt have helped me at this level when stakes have gotten higher and higher, then I believe that it has become even more important to find that everyday joy in the game. That joy will then combat the pressure you feel and make you feel less of it. At least that's what have worked for me. Now, I haven't played at the highest levels of football, but I'd imagine they give off a similar answer. Because I believe if you let the external pressure dictate your career, it will inevitably become too much. Putting pressure on yourself is different because that is something you can control. And if you can control it, you decide how it makes you feel. But the same goes for the other way around. Understanding that will help you greatly once you progress up the football ladder. Towards the end of my second professional season, I faced a new phase of my career. Playing professionally for 2 years did slightly change my vision and long-term goals for my career, and sometimes that may feel scary because you don't feel the same way that you used to. What have been your big goal for several years slowly disappears and is replaced by something else. But the lesson I've learned here is that the goals you set at the start of your journey, they might evolve and they might change, and that's okay. As time passes and you gain new experiences, your view of the world will change, and the same goes for your football career. I can honestly say that over the past year, I've had a tough time on deciding what the next step should be for me in my career, and I still haven't made a final decision. However, over the coming months, a decision has to be made, and of course that is something I will fill you in on once that happens, so make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss anything. But to be able to make that decision, I will follow the 3 final lessons of this video. Chapter 6: Reaching the professional level and beyond. I made a video recently where I talked about when I was starting out in my career, I used to look over the horizon and dream of what lied beyond. And I understood that the work that I put in would get me closer to that horizon and to my dreams. Along the way, as the years have passed, I have understood that you never really reach that horizon, because the closer you get to it, the further away it goes. And as you're chasing it, there is a chance that time and experiences will change the direction that you're headed in. But the lesson here is not what direction you go in, but rather to always keep chasing the horizon. And that's where I'm at right now. Do I keep chasing the same horizon, or do I pursue a new one? The only thing I know is that I won't stop, and no matter what awaits, I will still be chasing it. And before, I used to be afraid because I didn't know what was ahead. I wanted to be in control. But I've realized that in reality, you will never be in control and you will never know what's ahead. But you have to throw yourself into the unknown and give it a shot anyway. But no matter where your horizon is, no matter what dreams, desires, or goals you have, those goals means nothing without a proper plan. That's why the next lesson is to create a plan to follow. If you watched my video How to Become a Pro Footballer Starting from Zero, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, that is surely the next video you should watch after this one. That video goes through a clear step-by-step guide on how to create a plan to achieve your dreams and goals in your football career. As I decide on my own future, I will be setting goals and creating plans exactly how I did it in that video. And I will be documenting all of that when it happens here on the channel. Making a plan will take out a lot of the guesswork and allow me to know exactly what to do, which will help me remain consistent. But the most important thing with any plan is clarity, because the more clear our vision is, the easier it will be to execute, and the more likely it is that we actually stick through with it. Or I'll take that back. The second most important thing with a plan is clarity. The most important thing is to take action. Taking action is, in my opinion, the single most important thing that you should take away from this video. Because there's often a tendency among players to overanalyze and to be absolutely sure that you're doing the right things. But as I said in lesson 16, you will never know if you're doing the right things. So the most important lesson I've learned is that if you just keep going, keep doing the right things and always try to move forward, things will always work out. Maybe not in the way that you expect them to work out, but they will. And that's why taking action is so important. Because even if you take action and do wrong, you will still learn. But if you don't take action and at least try, you will never learn. If you want to hear my entire story of how I became a pro footballer, you can watch this video next. Also, if you made it to the very end of this video, I want you to comment the word action down below together with your key takeaway from this video. That way I know which players actually watched the entire video. But other than that, that's it for this time. Take care, and I'll see you very soon in the next one. Bye.